One specific frequency to affect the way we behave. It's true. One specific
So a typical morning in the kingdom, the first coming to America. Hakeem, he was in the kingdom of heaven. So that's how we're gonna be able to communicate with the animals. And you other nations, number one on the list is gonna be you Edomites, you're gonna be out in the field, getting your ass off, working your ass off. So we're gonna get up in the morning singing. Hey, you're gonna get up, you lay with one of your wives or concubines or whatever. So when we get up in the morning, we're gonna have a smile on our face. That's what 149 is talking about. When we get up in the morning, we're gonna be singing and dancing. We're gonna go to sleep happy, we're gonna get up happy, we're gonna eat happy. Every time we eat some food, it's gonna be good.
Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come with singing unto Zion, and their joy shall be upon their head. They shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall flee away.
So a typical morning in the kingdom, the first coming to America. Hakeem, he was in the kingdom of heaven. So that's how we're gonna be able to communicate with the animals. And you other nations, number one on the list is gonna be you Edomites, you're gonna be out in the field, getting your ass off, working your ass off. Faster! Shut up!
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lick out there pushing this word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, is dealing with, the evil empire, all right, that we're in now, dealing with Esau, Edom, and this form of government, all right, that we know as a oligarch, okay? So when you go into an oligarch, all right, there's the rule, okay, of wealthy families. Now, we're going to go into the difference between the aristocracy and the rule of oligarchs, okay, which the oligarchy is like the evil, all right, version of aristocracy, okay, because even in the kingdom, we're going to rule, based on aristocracy, okay. When you go into the word aristocracy, it goes into the best rule, okay. And Lord we'll get it. But I want to start out with a few precepts here, okay. Then I have a video, that goes into, the dynamics of an oligarch, okay, and what it looks like and the evil, all right, and wicked, okay, setup, of an oligarch. Okay. So when you go to Proverbs 28 and 15, it says, as a roaring lion and a raging bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. Okay. And the oligarchy is a real predatory, rulership, where it preys on the poor. Okay. And this is how Esau Edom rules the earth. The poor is a prey in this system. Okay. And that's why, people are complaining more and more. Okay. Because they're being devoured by this system, man. Okay. It's not meant for them to thrive. It's not meant, for them to obtain wealth. It's not meant for them to even enjoy the necessities of life, man. It's meant for them to be, all right, beggars forever, all right, to these ruling families, man. Okay. So when you jump down to verse 16, okay, it said the prince, all right, or the ruler that wanted understanding, all right, they lack in understanding. Because when you want something, it shows a lack of it. All right, the prince that wanted understanding is also a great oppressor. And this devil, all right, he doesn't have the understanding of righteousness, okay, integrity, fairness, okay. He doesn't lack those qualities as a ruler. I mean, he doesn't have those qualities as a ruler. He lacks those qualities, man. He's wanting in those departments. Okay. So by default, it makes him what? A great oppressor. Okay. But he that hateth covetousness shall prolong his days, and the kingdom of heaven is going to be a kingdom where there's not going to be covetousness, man. Okay. We're not going to be obsessed, with keeping people continually poor, and wanting every increase, all right, that people get. Overly concerned with people increase, man. You look at this government, the way that they track your increase is wicked, man. Okay. You shouldn't be able to track no one's increase, man. That's between them and Yahweh by Shemal Shah, because everything is other lords. Okay. As a ruling nation, people should pay tribute, but trying to pinpoint, and quantify, all right, their increase, that's wicked, man. Okay. So this is a extremely wicked kingdom, all right, and it's filled with nothing but this devil, overreaching as a ruler, man, to the form to where his rulership is devouring and it's oppressive. Okay. Um so let's go here. Um get a cue to the video. So I was watching this video yesterday. I listened to it, that I was moving around. But it just goes into, the ancient oligarchs. Okay, and then he relates it to today. So it's in the form of video. I want to get it. Here you go. Yep. So the video is called "What Aristotle Knew About Oligarchy." Okay, that we forgot. Okay, so let me see. So it's about 14 minutes. We'll play about 10, 11 minutes of it, just hitting the points. So I'm going to play this, and we're going to expound on some things, and just explains what we're in today. Okay, people think, democracy, you got Jake, 'cause the new wave amongst niggas is that they're these super Republicans now. Okay, but Democrat and Republican is nothing but an illusion, okay, of a power structure. The true power is within these elite families, okay, that own these politicians, man. Okay, these politicians are do boys to these oligarchs, man. Okay, so let's play this, and we'll expound from there. Um,
Imagine a society where the wealthiest few don't just influence laws, they write them, where they don't just benefit from policies, they create them, where state power isn't just swayed by wealth, it's wielded by it. Sounds familiar? Well, over 2,300 years ago, in his great work Politics, Aristotle identified a system of government he called oligarchy, rule by the wealthy few. Based on his studies of history and politics, he described how this system arises, how it maintains power, and why it's inherently. As you read Aristotle's description of oligarchy, you might start to recognize some unsettling parallels to your own society today. From the concentration of wealth to the influence of money in politics, Aristotle's ancient insights in many ways feel eerily modern. So in the next few minutes, we'll break down Aristotle's blueprint of oligarchy, perhaps uncovering how its ancient patterns may still occasionally echo in the corridors of power today. To understand Aristotle's view of oligarchy, we first need to understand his categories of regime types. In his typical systematic approach, Aristotle identified 6 distinct types of government, divided into 2 categories. There are the true forms and their perverted counterparts.
I started Tai Chi at 50. Now I'm 68, and doctors ask me.
Within the 3 true forms, we have monarchy first. In its ideal form, the monarch would be virtuous and govern for the common good. Next is aristocracy, which is ruled by a select few. For Aristotle, these aren't just the wealthy or the well-born, but the aristos, meaning the best, most virtuous, and most capable members of society. The third true form is what Aristotle called polity, sometimes translated as constitutional government. This is a mixed system, blending elements of democracy and oligarchy, but with a strong legal basis that prevents any powerful group from abusing the others. Now, for each of these, Aristotle identified a corresponding perverted form, a government that shares similarities with its true counterpart, but has deviated from the path of virtue and common good. Monarchy's corrupt twin is tyranny, as I presented in a previous video. Democracy is seen by Aristotle as the perverted form of polity. It's ruled by the masses, but without the legal limits of the polity, where decisions are driven by the majority's desires rather than the common good. For Aristotle, this often leads to demagoguery, instability, and the erosion of justice. And finally, we come to oligarchy. As Aristotle notes, the poor and the rich fight with each other, and whichever side wins doesn't set up a fair or popular government. Instead, they see political power as their prize for winning, and one side sets up democracy, while the other sets up an oligarchy. Remember, aristocracy is ruled by the aristos, or the best. Oligarchy, on the other hand, is a perversion of this ideal. In an oligarchy, focus shifts from the welfare of the community to the interests of the rulers themselves. It's no longer about who is most capable or most dedicated to the common good, most money or property. In aristocracy, leaders are chosen based on their ability to govern well and their commitment to the public interest. In oligarchy, the path to power is paved with gold, and the purpose of rule becomes the preservation and expansion of the ruler's wealth and influence. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process from usually polity, democracy, or aristocracy, and often.
What we have to understand with aristocracy, okay, which real quick, let's get that, and then we'll go back to the video. So when you go to an aristocracy, which that's how we're going to rule, okay, with an aristocracy, man, we're going to be that ruling family, okay, of the earth, okay. Now, when you go into aristocracy, it says government by those who are the best citizens, okay, and the Israelites were created to be what? Above, okay, what you're going to get that. All right, then it says from Greek aristocratia, it says government or rule of the best, okay. It says from Aristos, best of his kind, okay, and the Israelite is the best of his kind, all right, the children, the chosen people, okay. It says the noblest, the bravest, the most virtuous. Now, let's prove that we're going to rule as an aristocracy, okay. Let's get some precepts, okay, because aristocracy goes into the rule, okay, is the best, okay. It goes into true nobility, because the true nobility, okay, are the Israelites, okay. So first, let's go back here. Let me see. Let's go to Deuteronomy. All right, Deuteronomy chapter, okay, 7, okay, and 6. It says, in Deuteronomy 7 and 6, it says, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord Yahweh by Shema Shah the power. The Lord our power have chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Okay? So the Lord chose Israel to be a special people unto himself. Okay, above, okay, the best of his kind. All right. When you go and look at, the people on the earth where the Lord created Israel to be, all right, superior to everyone else. All right. And that came with a responsibility, okay, of ruling in righteousness, man, which we didn't do. So being the best is not just to be the best for bragging rights, but because the Lord wants us to be an example, okay, to everyone else on how they should be. Okay. So the Lord created Israel to be above, okay, for the sake of righteousness, man. You see? So going back here, the Lord said he planted us a particular way. How did the Lord plan us to be? Okay. This Jeremiah 22 and 21 said, "Yet I planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?" So you go into this word noble. Okay. Let's get this word noble. All right, which is in the Hebrew sharak. Okay. Sharak, and it says what? Choice species, vine of grapes. Okay. And when you go into it, it says it says properly one yielding purple grapes. But the main point is what? The richest variety. And it's talking about rich in quality and character and integrity. You see, and honesty. You see? So it goes into the choice vine, that choice stock. Okay, which Israel is their choice stock, the true aristocrats, aristocracy, man, the best rule. Okay, Israel is the best qualified to rule the earth. Okay, and that's why when you go here, even amongst Israel, you're going to have an elite. Okay, amongst the chosen people, amongst the best people, where you're going to have an elite amongst them. Okay, and that's going to be the first fruit, and that's the aristocracy that the Lord is going to bring. All right, to rule the earth. This is the book of Revelation 14 and 4, 144 says, "These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins." And speaking about being spiritual virgins. Okay, not defiled with the women, the philosophies of this age, of this world, the doctrine, the seducing, doctrine of this world. Okay. He said, "These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These are redeemed from among men, being the first fruits, okay, unto the Most High, to the Lamb." Now let's get this word first fruits, okay. Um, that's to show you that Yahushua is coming to set up an aristocracy, okay, of Israel, okay, the best choice to rule, the chosen stock, okay, the best of his kind. All right, you go to the word first fruits, which in the Greek is a parke, okay, and it goes into what person, definition 3 is the point. It says person superior in excellence to others of the same class. So Israel is going to be, an elite class in itself. But then amongst that elite class, you have an elite within the elite, and that's going to be the first fruits. Okay, and that's going to be the governing body. Okay, that's going to be joint heirs with Yahushua. Those spirits are created superior, okay, than the other spirits of Israel, okay, for what? For the purpose of rulership, because that government is going to rule in the entrance of his people. It's not going to rule in self-interest like the oligarchs, like Esau does. He rules with self-interest. Well, this rulership is going to be a blessing, all right, to the people. Okay, the earth is going to flourish under their rulership. Israel is going to be in peace forever. All right, then eventually the heathens are even going to be in peace. Okay, they're not going to be a part, all right, of their ruling class. They're not going to, have access to what we have access to. They're not going to have part in the new covenant. Okay, they'll still be subjugated to death. All right, they will enjoy the benefits of a righteous rulership, the true aristocracy, man. Okay, this Psalm 72:1. It says, "Give the king thy judgments, O power, and thy righteousness unto the king's son." And this is Yahweh Shai. He shall judge thy people with righteousness, and the poor with judgment. The mountains shall bring peace. The mountains is what Yahweh Shai, and all right, the 144,000, man, that government. Okay, Mount Zion. All right, the mountain shall bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness, man. So that government, okay, is going to serve. Okay, it's going to be a service to the people. Okay, it's going to do right by the people. Okay, those spirits are superior. Okay, to enforce righteousness. Okay, to judge in righteousness, man, forever. You see, and that's the righteous aristocracy that the Heavenly Father has coming. Okay, to this society, man, to the earth. Okay, so go back to the video, because I said now it's going to go into the oligarch and how the oligarchy, rules in the interest of the oligarchy, not the people.
Often subtle at first. Perhaps wealth starts as just one factor among many in selecting leaders, but over time, it becomes the dominant or even sole criterion. Or maybe virtuous leaders slowly begin to prioritize their own interests over those of the community. Aristotle noted that oligarchies, like tyrannies, are forms of government where power is used to benefit those in control rather than the broader community. So both systems are self-serving, but while tyranny is ruled by one person and his close circle, an oligarchy is ruled by a few more individuals. But more importantly, tyrants often rely on military force, whereas oligarchs first and foremost gain and maintain their power through their wealth. This is sometimes written into the law, but often it's just based on informal influence, which leads to laws and policies that favor the wealthy.
Oh, snap. Oh, Salaki. Hold on, give me a second. It X'd out. Salaki. Oh.
From usually polity, democracy, or aristocracy, and often subtle at first. Perhaps wealth starts as just one factor among many in selecting leaders, but over time, it becomes the dominant or even sole criterion. Or maybe virtuous leaders slowly begin to prioritize their own interests over those of the community. Aristotle noted that oligarchies, like tyrannies, are forms of government where power is used to benefit those in control rather than the broader community. So both systems are self-serving, but while tyranny is ruled by one person and his close circle, an oligarchy is ruled by a few more individuals. But more importantly, tyrants often rely on military force, whereas oligarchs first and foremost gain and maintain their power through their wealth. This is sometimes written into the law, but often it's just based on informal influence, which leads to laws and policies that favor the wealthy. The main point is that power is kept within the wealthy few, either through high property qualifications for holding office, or by making the process of running for office too expensive for most people. This financial control allows them to operate within existing legal and political systems, manipulating these systems to suit their needs. This gives oligarchies an appearance of legitimacy, making them seem more stable than tyrannies, but Aristotle still considered them unstable at their core. Oligarchs are skilled at using their political power to protect and grow their wealth. They might pass laws that give them lucrative government contracts, protect business monopolies, or create regulations that limit competition. These tactics can sometimes lead to supreme oligarchy, where the wealthy have unchecked power and ignore any appearance of cultural or constitutional limits. In these cases, decisions are made solely for the benefit of the ruling elite rather than for the good of society. This disregard for the common good is another trait that oligarchies share with tyrannies, making them similarly dangerous to a state's stability. Also, like tyrants, oligarchs tend to distrust the general population. They might disarm the common people and hire foreign mercenaries to guard against potential uprisings. This reflects their very real fear of losing control, leading them to keep the poor at bay, sometimes even pushing them out of cities by making urban living too expensive, or taking more direct measures to maintain their grip on power. Aristotle points.
Does not this sound familiar today? Okay, and what this devil wants to do, all right, these oligarchs, beginning with the elite banking families, well, they want to use technology, okay, to ensure that there's always going to be a great divide between the few elite families and then, okay, this technology is for the interest of the oligarchs, and they're going to sell it and push it as if it's for the interest of the masses. But no, technology that they want to introduce within this new world order is for the interest of the oligarchs, okay, to keep them in positions of power forever. This is the devil's plan. All right, he's going to use technology, okay, to keep himself, all right, in power and wealth forever. These few, all right, ruling families, and that's why you see a wealth grab to where you have, certain families that are being allowed, to do wealth grabs, okay, and there's going to be a cutoff in this transition to a new system, okay, and if you're not a part, okay, of the oligarchy, all right, those few ruling families, you'll never be a part of it. You'll never be able to obtain wealth. Okay, what Klaus Schwab said, you will own nothing and be happy, man. Okay, they want to own everything, okay, including you. You see, and they never want that system to change. So this new world order is this devil trying to lock in, all right, this wicked, all right, oligarchy system where everything serves the interests of a few ruling families, man, at the expense of the suffering of the masses, man. Okay, evil empire, man. This is what the devil is running. Okay.
Pointed out that oligarchy isn't a single uniform system, but rather a spectrum with different types. On one end, there are extreme forms where only the very richest have power. In other forms, a small, powerful minority controls the government, and while it might seem open to those with modest wealth, it remains firmly in the hands of a gatekeeping inner circle. So how do these oligarchies come to power? Aristotle explained that it often starts with a gradual shift. A small group of people begin to accumulate more wealth, which in turn allows them to gain more political influence. As their power grows, they shape policies and institutions in ways that further increase their wealth, creating a cycle where wealth leads to power and power leads to more wealth. A system that seems democratic or aristocratic can start to slide into oligarchy without most people noticing. Over time, certain signs become clearer. The wealthiest begin to control all key government roles and institutions. Merit and ability become less important than wealth for gaining leadership positions. And the idea that economic inequality also justifies political inequality becomes more accepted. Once an oligarchy is established, the people in power use several tactics to keep their hold on power. First, they use state power to keep class distinctions in place, reinforcing social barriers that prevent people from moving up. This might involve controlling the education system to ensure that only their children can afford the opportunities for leadership roles, or enacting laws that make it harder for those born into lower classes to build wealth or social status. Gradually, oligarchies take control over the legal system and lawmaking process. They shape laws to serve their interests, often claiming they are just protecting property rights or maintaining economic stability. This can mean taxes that benefit the wealthy or regulations that protect their businesses from competition. Eventually, the wealthy begin to exert influence over all crucial aspects of society, perhaps the primary industries, major trade routes, or the means of cultural production. Furthermore, oligarchies rely on strong alliances among elites. These aren't just political alliances, but also social and economic connections, like intermarriage between powerful families, shared business interests, and exclusive clubs. These connections create a tightly knit ruling class that works together to maintain its control. Over time, this concentration of power and wealth often leads to a decline in public virtue, where personal gain takes priority over the common good among all members of society. At this point, you might be wondering how these ancient insights apply to the world around us. While Aristotle was examining the city-states of ancient Greece, his observations on oligarchy were remarkably astute and perhaps relevant to a few other societies throughout history. Let's consider some signs that might indicate the presence of oligarchic tendencies. First, look at laws and regulations that benefit the wealthy at the expense of the general populace or society at large. This isn't always obvious. It might be hidden in complex tax codes or subtle regulatory structures. Imagine, for instance, a tax code that allows owners of luxury yachts to claim significant deductions while providing no comparable options for ordinary citizens. Next, examine economic policies. Do they tend to increase concentration of wealth? Aristotle noted that oligarchies use their power to further enrich themselves. Consider a hypothetical society where the government consistently bails out large corporations, which hits the general population with inflation, higher taxes, and reduced public services. Over time, this could lead to increased wealth concentration. Another key indicator is access to political office. In a true oligarchy, only the wealthy can realistically attain positions of power. As mentioned, this might not be an explicit law, but picture a hypothetical political system where running for office requires millions in personal funds or backing from wealthy donors. This effectively restricts political participation to the rich or those supported by the rich. Related to this is the question of who has genuine access to lawmakers and regulators. In an oligarchic system, the wealthy few have the ear of those in power, while ordinary citizens struggle to make their voices heard. Imagine a scenario where industry leaders regularly hold private meetings with lawmakers and powerful bureaucrats to discuss policy, while requests for meetings from ordinary citizens and smaller organizations are usually denied or ignored. Also look for a so-called revolving door between government and the private sector. If you see a constant flow of individuals moving between positions of political power and high-level corporate roles, that might indicate the kind of close alliance between wealth and governance that Aristotle associated with oligarchy. Picture a situation where a high-ranking official in the finance ministry leaves his post for a lucrative position in a major bank, or a former minister getting hired in a corporation within his former portfolio. Social mobility is another crucial factor. Aristotle understood that oligarchies work to maintain class distinctions. Consider a hypothetical society where the cost of education has skyrocketed to the point where only the children of wealthy families can attend universities without incurring crippling debt, thereby limiting opportunities for advancement for those from less affluent backgrounds. Remember, Aristotle didn't see these as isolated factors, but as symptoms of a political system that prioritizes the interests of the wealthy few over the common good.
Yeah, and I'll put about a few minutes left, about 3-4 minutes left. But I'll put it in the link in the chat. And let's get a couple precepts. Okay. So first let's start off with this. Because this is nothing new. Okay. When you go here to Ecclesiastes 1:9, all right, because he said he was talking about Aristotle. Well, he was Jake, but he was speaking of what he was seeing in the Greco, all right, in the Greek, okay, empire, okay. So this is nothing new because this is the Greco-Roman Empire revived. You know, Rome had its oligarchs, okay. They the ruling classes. A lot of those senators come from those rich ruling class families of ancient Rome, pagan Rome. Okay, you know, a lot of money. Okay, that flowed through Rome flowed through those families, man. Okay. This is Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 said history merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Okay, so this system of oligarchy is nothing new. This is just the latest version of it. Okay, with Esau Edom in this time. All right, and now this devil has more technology than the ancient Greco-Roman Empire. Okay, and he wants to lock down, like I say, he wants to lock into. All right, he wants to lock this style of ruling. Okay, where everything benefits. All right, these few families. Okay, at the expense of the masses. Okay, he wants to lock that into place with technology, man. Okay, that's why he wants to read your thoughts. Okay, he wants to control your every movement, your every transaction, man. Okay, it says, "He that oppresseth the poor," Proverbs 22 and 16 say, "He that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want." Okay, so this devil, he oppresses the poor to increase his riches, man. Okay, he has a industry that benefits off people being sick. Okay, so he intentionally poisons people. Okay, to keep a certain industry going. All right, he has an industry based on oil where there's other forms of energy that will be less harmful to the earth and more cost efficient. But because he has monopolized the oil, he creates a system where oil, all right, is a necessity of this society, man. And many other things. But the point is, he oppresses the poor to increase his riches, man. Okay, and he constantly just gives more wealth to those who are already wealthy. Okay, it's very wicked when it comes to the wealth distribution in this man's kingdom, man. But he said he shall surely come to want. All right, which means Esau is going to come to poverty, man. Okay, Esau is going to be stripped of his authority and his wealth, man. Okay, and he's going to go into captivity. Okay, and our forefathers, okay, they ruled off of merit. Okay, not based off of wealth. You had certain great men that would become wealthy, but they became wealthy off their merit. Okay, off their integrity. Daniel, he increased, but it was based off his merit and his integrity, man. Okay, not based off uh, uh, him being born into a wealthy family. Okay, when you get those examples, Daniel, he was of the family of kings, but he became exalted in Babylon, okay, based on his faith, okay, and his trust in Yahweh Bashem Shai, okay. So this is what this is the empire, okay, that Yahweh Shai is coming to take down when he returns, okay. The empire, this evil empire, these oligarchs, man. Okay, matter of fact, let's get this and we can end here. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2. Okay, and it describes this devil's rulership. All right, so you go here to the book of Micah, chapter 2. And verse 1. All right, Micah 2 and 1, it says, "What sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night, thinking of evil plans?" Okay, and this all these devils do, man. These few, okay, ruling families, they're constantly in council, and this council's of wickedness, man. What wickedness can they do next? It says, "You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out, simply because you have the power, okay, to do so." Because he's in control of all the different industries, man. Big corporation. He's in control of governments. Okay, real quick. Well, I forget because they say they make it to where, the common person can't afford the schooling, needed, to get positions of power in society. So you go into, I asked the chat, what was the top schools, okay, that produce, politicians and CEO. corporate executives. Okay, so when you go to it, it says what the U.S. institutions that produce the most Fortune 500 CEOs. Harvard University lead with 41 alumni currently serving as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. It says most earn graduate degrees, particularly MBAs from Harvard. All right, business school, man. These are nothing but social clubs for the rich. You know, they send their children there. A lot of their children, they go through these different rituals and join these different, secret societies. Okay, but these certain colleges, these prestigious colleges, they say, okay, are nothing but social clubs of the wealthy. All right, and they send their children there to be groomed. All right, to be the leaders of the world, because they go to school and get indoctrinated. Okay, with enlightened and going back to the age of enlightenment. Okay, so their children are going to these schools and getting, you know, new world order training, man. Okay, because they're the leaders. Okay, of the next generation of what oligarchs, man. Okay, it said Harvard also dominates in producing billionaire alumni with 104 graduates, followed by Stanford, then the University of Pennsylvania. It says CEO percentage relative to alumni size, Vanderbilt University, okay, and then you have Stanford, all right. So you have Ivy League. It said politicians and public officials, okay. It says Ivy League and Ivy Plus schools, Harvard, Chicago, Duke, MIT, Stanford have produced over 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs, 25% of U.S. senators, 50% of Rhodes Scholars, 3/4 of Supreme Court justices, okay, appointed in the past half century, okay. So they keep this thing tight, man, and they make these schools, unaffordable for the common people because it's not for the common people, okay. You see, it says Harvard, and they're known for most Fortune 500 CEOs. Stanford strong CEO alumni, uh, University of Penn, billionaire alumni, political leader, Duke, elite politicians, cabinet members, and executives, so forth and so on. All right. And they make these schools, impossible for the common person to afford. Okay. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, to go to these schools. All right. And there's set like that. All right. To where their children, okay, go to these schools and be groomed up for these positions of leadership, and they keep it within these elite families, man. Okay, so let's go back here. You see, all the leaders go to these few, you know, um, prestigious, Ivy League schools. Okay, where they get laced up with the game. Okay, and are set in these positions, in these high positions, man. Okay, this is Micah 2 and 2. It says, when you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. Colonization, colonialism. He went into that. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud or violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family's inheritance, man. Because these devils, all right, because it went from, the earth, European colonization to now where the earth is being colonized by particular families. All right, wealthy families are colonizing the earth. See, the New World Order is going from, because the New World Order is French, Spain, and British. See, it's going to be territories of oligarchs, man. That's their intention. Okay, you see the Hunger Games, Zone 1, Zone 2, these different districts. Well, that's how they want to recolonize the earth under these oligarch families, man. Okay, European colonization was, Spain, Portugal, Europe, the British, the French. Okay, now they want to carve it up by these oligarchs, these families, man. Okay, into these districts, man. Okay, that's their intention. It says, but this is what the Lord says: I will reward your evil with evil You won't be able to pull your neck out of the noose. You won't be able to remove, okay, yourself from this judgment, man. Okay. It says you will no longer walk around proudly, for it will be a terrible time, man. And these devils have been able to walk around proudly, within this evil empire. But the Lord is fin to topple the evil empire. And you get Michael 2 and 3, let you know, because oligarchy, it goes back to family as well. When you go to Michael 2 and 3, you get in the KJV. Okay. And it says, therefore, thus said the Lord power, behold, against this family, okay, this family of Esau, Edom, do I devise an evil from which you will not remove your necks, neither shall you go haughtily, for this time is evil, man. So the Lord, all right, is finna bring down the evil empire, man. Okay. And they're gonna go straight into hardcore bondage, man. They're gonna go from world dominion, okay, to hardcore rigorous captivity, man. Okay. Now, these devils are getting ready to lose. You see? So just wanted to go into that, man. This is the form of government that's ruling the earth, oligarchy, man. All right, of Edomite ruling elite families, man. Okay, and they want to lock it in with this technology, but the Lord's gonna upset, okay, their plans. All right, so Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters, edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash, and the double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great example to which younger brothers. Peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful Shalom.